What happens when the very institutions sworn to uphold justice are accused of waging a war on faith? In a stunning congressional hearing, a United States senator unveils a deeply disturbing narrative. Over 300 churches and more than 100 pregnancy care centers attacked, vandalized, and even firebombed. Yet the Department of Justice secured only 2 prosecutions. In stark contrast, the same DOJ prosecuted at least 53 pro-life demonstrators, famously dispatching a SWAT team to arrest one father in front of his 7 children. An internal FBI memo emerges, outlining a plan to infiltrate Catholic parishes. Faced with these explosive allegations, a nominee for Attorney General makes a series of sweeping promises for reform. But are these promises a genuine commitment to a new chapter? Or merely the calculated words of a nominee navigating a political minefield?
I, too, have taken note of the number of times you have been asked about weaponization of the Department of Justice as if it was a theoretical possibility that might happen in the future. One of my colleagues on the other side said, weaponization may well occur under your tenure. We all know that weaponization has occurred like we've never seen before in American history under this administration. And I want to get even more specific. In the last 4 years, this administration has carried out an unprecedented attack and campaign against people of faith. If you look at the numbers, we've never seen anything like it before in American history. It has been one of the most disgraceful chapters in the history of the Justice Department and in the history of the FBI. And I hope that you will reverse this and do right by every American citizen, including especially people of faith. Let me give you some specifics. After the Dobbs case was decided by the Supreme Court, over 100 pregnancy care centers and over 300 churches in this country were attacked, vandalized, firebombed. Do you happen to know off the top of your head how many prosecutions Merrick Garland's Justice Department brought in those cases?
I do not, Senator.
It's a stunning number. It's 2. Hundreds of churches, hundreds of pregnancy care centers. And I might just add, these pregnancy care centers, the attacks on them, which were violent, which were gruesome, were egged on and encouraged by rhetoric from members of Congress, including members of this body, who have said that pregnancy care centers aren't real medicine, that they're not real doctors. They have legitimized these attacks. And the same thing was true of churches. And this Justice Department couldn't lift a finger to defend these Americans, but at the same time, they used legislation, a law known as the FACE Act, to prosecute at least 53 different pro-life demonstrators, including people like Mark Houck from Pennsylvania, to whom this Justice Department sent a SWAT team to his door in the early morning hours. He has, I think, 7 children. In the early morning hours, an FBI SWAT team shows up at his door to take him into custody and prosecute him. By the way, he was acquitted. This kind of outrageous, disparate treatment has to end. So here's my question to you. Will you protect churches and pregnancy care centers when they are targeted for violence, when they are targeted for intimidation, when their members or parishioners are threatened with violence or other acts of illegal behavior?
Yes, Senator.
Will you stop the disparate treatment of Americans on the basis of religious faith?
Yes, Senator.
Will you stop the deliberate persecution of pro-life Americans for nothing more than their pro-life beliefs?
Yes, Senator.
Will you ensure that nothing like the Mark Houck case happens again, that Americans do not have SWAT teams arriving on their front doors with armed weapons to terrorize their children and their spouses, only in the end, of course, to have the case lost because there was nothing to it? Will you put an end to that kind of deliberate intimidation of the good American citizens on the basis of their religious beliefs?
Yes, Senator.
I'm glad to hear you say that because we need it. We need it. Ms. Bondi, we need a new chapter at the Justice Department, and we need it quickly. And I'm glad you're committed to it. Now, I also have heard you've been asked about your comment that you thought that in some cases we need to investigate the investigators, the ones who were bad. You know, I have to say I'm glad to hear you stand by that. We need to do that. You need to do that. And I'll give you another example. I'm sure you've read about this memo, which I now hold in my hands. This memo that was developed by the FBI field office in Richmond, Virginia, 23rd January 2023, targeting Catholic parishes for spying, for recruitment of infiltrators, I mean, the memo goes on and on and on about the FBI's plans to put assets into Catholic parishes, into choirs. This is an unbelievable assault on Americans' First Amendment rights, and we only know of it because of a brave whistleblower who came forward and released it to us. And I will tell you, I have never been misled and lied to like I was by the current Attorney General and the now former FBI director when they sat right where you're sitting now and told this committee, oh, we don't know anything about it. Oh, only one field office was involved. It was the single work of a single field office and a very few individuals. As it turns out, that's not true. Multiple field offices were involved. Multiple individuals were involved. Under your leadership, will you put a stop to the use of FBI or Department of Justice resources to try and recruit informants and spies into Christian churches or any church or house of worship in this country on the basis of nothing more than faith?
Of course, Senator.
Let me just say this. To our knowledge, no one who was involved in the writing and performance, execution of this memo has been disciplined or fired. Will you conduct an investigation like you talked about, Ms. Bondi, that will get to the bottom of abuses like this? And to be clear, this is an outrageous abuse. It is an outrageous abuse. One of the worst abuses of Department of Justice and FBI authority in our history. Will you conduct an investigation to find out who signed off on this, who approved it, who advocated for it within the Department of Justice? Will you open the books on these abuses so that the American people can have confidence in their DOJ?
Senator, and I think what you're talking about is the ultimate weaponization, what we've been discussing all day. If I am confirmed as Attorney General, one of the first things I will do, there'll be many, but I will personally read that memo, and if Mr. Patel is confirmed, discuss it with him right away.
Fantastic. And will you work with this committee and our relevant subcommittees? I'm going to chair a subcommittee called the Crime and Terrorism Committee. We're going to do our own investigation into what happened here at the FBI and the DOJ. Will you work with us as you discover the nature of these abuses, and as you put a stop to them, will you work with us to make sure the American people get all the facts and this never happens again?
And Senator, yes, I look forward to working with you and the Democrats. I would think this is something that we can all agree on both sides, that this should not be happening in the United States of America, and work together on it.
That's fantastic. Let me ask you one other question here in my just few seconds that are remaining. This memo targeting Catholic parishes repeatedly refers to as an expert source a group called the Southern Poverty Law Center. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center has a long history as an anti-religious group that has repeatedly gone after conservative and religious organizations, called them hate groups, called them sometimes terrorist groups. They're cited in this memo. They once infamously, the SPLC called the Family Research Council a terrorist hate group, and an armed gunman came into their lobby and opened fire. Will you put a stop to the use of the SPLC as an official source for any Department of Justice memorandum or finding?
That will be one of the first things we will look at as well, Senator, and report back to you and the committee.
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
The transcript of this hearing captures a moment of intense political theater, but beneath the surface, it reveals a masterclass in prosecutorial questioning and strategic political maneuvering. We witness a direct confrontation over one of the most sensitive accusations that can be leveled against a government: the systemic weaponization of its justice system against its own citizens based on their religious beliefs. The two central figures are the senator, acting as an aggressive investigator, and the nominee, Ms. Bondi, whose role is to navigate this assault and emerge not only unscathed, but as a potential savior for the very department she seeks to lead. The senator's strategy is built on a foundation of damning specifics, designed to paint a picture of undeniable bias. He begins not with vague accusations, but with a shocking statistical disparity. The numbers: over 400 combined attacks on churches and pregnancy centers, resulting in a mere 2 federal prosecutions, are immediately contrasted with the 53 prosecutions against pro-life demonstrators under the FACE Act. This is a classic rhetorical technique, using data to frame the narrative as one of gross injustice before any personal story is even told. He then immediately personalizes this data with the visceral example of Mark Houck, a man he describes as having a SWAT team sent to his home in the early morning to terrorize their children and their spouses, only to be acquitted later. This transforms an abstract number into a human tragedy, making the accusation emotionally resonant. The senator's masterstroke, however, is the introduction of the FBI's Richmond field office memo. This is his smoking gun tangible proof that shifts the argument from prosecutorial discretion to active, premeditated infiltration. By reading from the memo describing plans to recruit informants and spies into Christian churches, he presents an undeniable assault on First Amendment rights. To further discredit the agency, he strategically points out that the memo relies on the Southern Poverty Law Center, or SPLC, which he frames as a partisan, anti-religious entity, thereby suggesting the FBI's actions are rooted in political ideology, not legitimate law enforcement concerns. Faced with this relentless barrage, Miss Bondi employs the only viable strategy available to her: complete and total capitulation. Her repeated, succinct, "Yes, Senator is not a sign of weakness, but a calculated act of political survival." Each yes serves to de-escalate the conflict, validate the senator's concerns, and, most importantly, align herself with him as an agent of change. She does not defend the past actions of the DOJ or FBI. Instead, she positions herself as the remedy. She promises to personally investigate the memo, to end the disparate treatment, to stop the deliberate persecution of pro-life Americans, and to halt the use of intimidating tactics like the Hawk raid. Her promise to work with the Senator's committee is the pinnacle of this strategy, transforming an adversarial hearing into the beginning of a proposed partnership. She effectively absorbs every accusation and recasts it as a mandate for her future leadership. This is not a debate. It is a public extraction of promises. Beyond the tactics of the two individuals, this exchange illuminates profound themes of power, accountability, and the fragility of trust in public institutions. The hearing is a textbook example of Congress's oversight role, a mechanism designed to hold the immense power of the executive branch in check. The senator leverages this platform to voice the concerns of a significant portion of the populace who feel alienated and targeted by their own government. The core issue transcends the specific memo or court cases. It is about whether justice can remain blind when political polarization is at an all-time high. The senator is crafting a narrative of persecution that resonates deeply with his constituents, while Miss Bondi is attempting to craft a counter-narrative of restoration and integrity. The transcript reveals that the battle for the soul of the Justice Department is fought not just in courtrooms, but in the court of public opinion, through carefully constructed narratives and televised hearings like this one. Ultimately, the hearing forces us to confront the question posed at the outset: are these promises of reform genuine? The transcript itself cannot provide the definitive answer. It documents a moment of profound political pressure and a series of public commitments made under oath. The senator successfully cornered the nominee and extracted the exact promises he sought. Ms. Bondi successfully navigated the hearing by giving him everything he wanted. The true verdict on her sincerity and the future of the Justice Department will not be found in these words, but in the actions that follow should she be confirmed. This transcript is the baseline against which all her future actions will be measured. What do you think? Were the senator's accusations justified? Is the nominee's promise of reform genuine? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more in-depth analysis.